A lot of people tend to overthink posting on LinkedIn, but just start when you feel ready. Your story can help someone, but only if you share it. So that's always been my guiding principle in posting. Also, you should have clarity. You should know who you want to help. So actually, before focusing on moms returning to work, I was everywhere. In terms of the post that I create on LinkedIn. So I would post about recruiting, I'd post about my family life. So when I decided to zero in on my advocacy, that's when everything, all my content pillars and the articles that I put out on LinkedIn work together.
Hello and welcome to Make It Work, the bi-weekly podcast where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their career paths whilst putting family first. All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of Make It Work. And I am your host, Sarah Wong. Today, I'm super excited to have May Buendia Palabrica, all the way from Philippines. She's my first guest from Philippines, and I visited the country last year. It was amazing. I wish I could stay longer, and I'm so excited to have May on today. She is the embodiment of the modern working mom, and she has been an HR professional with 15 years of experience. She's currently the vice president of HR relationship manager at Citibank. And the most interesting part is that she has had a bit of a non-linear career where she started out in corporate, left it after 8 years to start a really cool crafting business, creating kid gowns, and even served celebrities in Philippines. And then she went back to corporate. She is now also a coach for moms and the number 20 Filipino on LinkedIn. So excited to get into so many things with May. Welcome, May.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be your guest today.
So tell us about yourself in 2 minutes or less.
My name is May Buendia Palabric. I'm a talent and HR professional here in the Philippines. I'm also an advocate of moms returning to work, which led me to start a community called Moms Next Move. So, as you mentioned earlier, I'm a returnee. After years in corporate, I took a break in 2018 to pursue my passion, which is creating gowns for kids. So I went into that full time until in 2020 when the pandemic hit. Unfortunately, it put a halt also on my business as with I think the world. So my business slowed down significantly during that time. And that's when I decided to go back to corporate life. Since 22, I am back and my journey actually inspired me to help other moms as well who were struggling to restart their careers. Personally, Sarah, I have three kids. My eldest is now 22 years old. And then I have two girls. One is 10 years old, and then my youngest is 5. And my husband runs his own recruitment firm also here in the Philippines.
Very cool. So, May, I want to ask you a question. What is it about you that makes you special?
So I'd say that in the past 6 years, Sarah, I had to pivot 4 times. And for someone who is risk averse, that is really something that is mind blowing for me looking back at my journey. I mentioned already my pivot from corp to setting up my own business. But in between that, I've also tried different things. So I also tried freelancing. I also tried many other things until I decided to go back to corporate life. So I think reinvention and resilience became the theme of my life for the past 6 years. And another thing maybe that makes me unique or me is my commitment to lifting others up. So when I struggled in my own career comeback, I wish there was a roadmap for moms like me. It's not easy for us to go back to corporate, especially as mothers. We have, different seasons and different responsibilities. So now I get to create that roadmap through Mom's Next Move. And that is how this advocacy of mine started.
Yeah, thanks, May, for sharing that. I think your content about you being resilient through your many pivots really resonates with so many people and reflects from the 40,000 over subscribers that follow you and really resonate with your content. So I would love for us to go to a time, May, when you were maybe in your pivot or doing your career journey, or when you were really down and at a really dark period, and how do you get out of it?
Career-wise, I think the hardest part for me was when I left my corporate career to start my business. As you know, having your own business is very different in terms of the financial side is a challenge, of course. Unlike when you're working in a corporate environment wherein you get a regular salary on a monthly basis and also there's more stability. But when I decided to pivot and have my own business, there were days actually that I questioned if I had made a huge mistake. So, but what pulled me through actually, number one was I really love what I was doing at the time. I really enjoyed it. Even if I didn't have a business background, I had to learn everything from scratch. But I was really enjoying the whole process of dealing with customers, seeing my creations come to life and all. So that is the number one that pulled me through. Number two was, of course, the support system. So, of course, my family, my husband was very supportive. If he was not supportive, then I would not have done it. But I was lucky to have a husband who supports me in everything that I wanted to do. I also had to connect with other entrepreneurs or mompreneurs and in terms of sharing experiences and building connections and communities during the time. So I learned a lot from them as well. And at the same time, I also had to remind myself that I was building something new and I wasn't starting over. So I think those three support systems helped me a lot during that time. And had it not been because of the pandemic, who knows, it might be a different story right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, do you remember, May, any specific incident that comes to mind when you were getting through this difficult process? Yeah, I would love to hear a story or two.
I think, Sarah, it was really the pandemic that became the decision factor for me. Before the pandemic, everything was going very smoothly. Actually, before I left corporate, the business was already doing great. It was a side hustle for years before I decided to go full time. As I mentioned earlier, I'm risk averse. Before we made the decision as a family, we made sure that, everything is going well. Like we have enough savings to get us through. And because the business was already running, I wasn't starting from scratch actually. We already have clients lined up. That was 2018. We already had clients like 2, 3 years. I wasn't starting from scratch actually. We already have clients lined up. That was 2018. We already had clients like 2, 3 years from there. So the business was doing well. However, because of the pandemic, it really changed everything. Like since I was in the gown business, my clients are weddings. My clients are brides preparing for their weddings or mothers preparing for birthday parties of their children. So because of the lockdowns and all, everything had to shut down. So all events were either canceled or moved. And a lot of the clients that booked us were asking for refunds and all. So that was really a dark time for someone in the events industry specifically. Suddenly, we didn't have any source of income, and I had staff working for me during that time. So during that time, of course, the number one priority was to help them secure because that's their livelihood. So that was my source of income, but that's also their lone source of income. So during that time, we had to think of pivoting quickly. So we did some products that are not in our line of business during the time, like cloth face masks or even PPEs, but those were not sustainable. So that is also one of the reasons why I decided to go back to work because going back to work enabled me to have quick cash injections, which also helped support my staff during that time. So I'm also really very grateful for that opportunity because of that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm doing a bit of the math. Like your kids were pretty young at that time during COVID, right? It's 5 years ago.
Yeah, a lot of things going on at the same time. Yeah, I had a 1-year-old during that time. So aside from worrying about everything about COVID, also had to worry about a lot of other stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. It must have been so big a step for you to leave your job initially because you're saying that you're risk averse. I'm curious if you don't mind sharing, was the amount of money that you were making from your side gig already reaching the level of your income? That's why you decided, or it was more like, okay, it would look like the trajectory was going to be positive, and so that's why you leapt into it.
Yeah, more of the second. The good thing about starting it as a side hustle is that when I decided to go full time, I wasn't really starting from zero. So I already have the brand name is already rising. We already had clients booked with us. So the potential is really great. And the reason why I decided to go full time is because I wanted to support the growth of the business. And because that is also something that really makes me happy, as I mentioned to you earlier. So when I left, when I decided to leave, the income wasn't really, at par with the salary that I was earning. But after making some computations with my husband is also working, so we are a double income family, so we're not really going to be zero, but we just made sure that our basic needs and our priorities will be sustained during the period when we are still growing the business. So
Taking those calculated risks, I think, really important. But I mean, the fact that you left in with young kids is so really something that many people feel they can't do. And I'm sure you experience that with the women that you speak with all the time. So, May, is there anything that you would do differently looking back?
do differently would be maybe be more prepared financially. Well, I mentioned earlier that we tried to be prepared, right? But we were not, well, who can predict a pandemic
Okay.
like COVID-19? So yeah, so looking back, I think making sure that you have multiple sources of income would be good. And one thing that I also neglected, as if I may say, is keeping in touch with my industry. So when I decided to go into the business, I didn't connect anymore with my peers or my network in the HR or talent industry, because my thinking back then was that I wouldn't go back to work anymore. So I focused all my time on my new environment and did not totally disconnected from my previous industry. So looking back, maybe I wouldn't have disconnected myself the connections that I have made previously, and so those are my learnings from that previous experience.
That's a really interesting point that you're sharing of trying to maintaining those warm relationships and contacts, even as you are trying to something new. That's something that I guess sounds like an additional burden, but you never know, right, when you might need to fall back. And sometimes it could even be converted into new, I suppose, like when you
Yeah,
hear what you're doing.
that's true.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that advice. I'm curious what the environment is like in the Philippines for working mothers. What are the structures that are in place
Mm.
thrive at work? And
Yeah, so in the Philippines, while there are maternity benefits and some companies offering flexible work, I think childcare is still a major gap here. So, unlike in other countries where there are widely available daycare services, it's not something that is present here. Maybe a few, but it's not yet as widely available. So, because of that, many moms still rely on family support, like parents or relatives to take care of their kids or hiring household help. However, nowadays in the Philippines, it's a problem that I encountered and other moms that I know also encountered. It's very hard to find local household help nowadays, even here in the Philippines. So some are really forced to leave their jobs because no one is going to take care of their. So that is something that we are hoping is going to be addressed here in the Philippines soon. On the bright side, remote work has opened new opportunities for moms. There are many groups here in the Philippines that are advocating and supporting moms in finding freelance opportunities, like become virtual assistants or social media managers or offer other freelance opportunities. But overall, I think we still have a long way to go in terms of policy, pay equity, and workplace flexibility in the Philippines. Yeah.
wow, thank you so much for sharing a bit of that insight. I can see how it between a rock and a place that you find yourself with quality childcare available and they're just not able to go back to work. But hopefully, yeah, with more remote options. And in fact, I think that's one thing you also coach your women on. I know on your website you have resources that provide women with different options. So it sounds like that's something that you come across quite often as a question. Is that right?
Yeah, I think actually based on my chats with moms, the common issue is that they don't know what to do next. After being away for a couple of years from their careers, they don't know what to pursue or how to even start doing it. So part of our career chat is also like having career discussions. What do you really like? What do you enjoy doing? Because aside from actually going back to corporate work, there are other opportunities that you can also explore. And some are actually even depends on your situation, could be more beneficial for you. So those are part of the discussions that I have with the mothers. Most of them are also confused, so they're not familiar with what is freelancing, what is consulting, right? So how do I set up my own business? So what business do I set up? So there's a lot of questions, but I think it's just a matter of getting them familiarized with the opportunities, the wealth of opportunities nowadays that they can explore. So that is what I'm trying to also advocate for.
I'm totally with you on this, May. I am organizing a talk on this, but I really do see a gap between women wanting to look at different work options, especially after they become mom, and what is actually out there where there's no real path, like the traditional path of going to LinkedIn or going to talk to your contacts. Like there's just, it's a bit of a wild west. And if you want to do something different, it takes a lot. So, and this podcast was basically to find the gray space between full-time stay at home and full-time like career mode. And I've been so amazed and blessed by hearing all the different kinds of models, from job sharing to being mentored after you go back to work to portfolio career. And it's really opened up my eyes for sure. And I think we just need to keep talking about these so more people have examples to look up to.
I agree, I agree. There's a lot of opportunities, but it can also be overwhelming, right? Most of the time, we don't know if it will work for us and how are we going to even start doing it. So I think in those areas, there's still a lot of help that we can share for the mothers to know what options are there for them. So yeah, I'm looking forward to joining that event too and learning from you and your speakers.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would love for you, May, if you could bring down a little bit of that process that you help your moms demystify this gray area. Like, what are some handles and what are the big steps to take?
So first is, of course, you have to know your why. I know it's already a cliche. A lot of people are saying, "What's your why?" But I think it's just a matter of being clear with what you need and what you want during this season of your life. Because as mothers, we have different seasons, like, right? So like your needs are different when your kids are still small or grade schoolers or even in college. Everything evolves. So it really depends on your current situation in life and what you want to do. So that's where we start first. As I mentioned earlier, it could be overwhelming for us mothers to think about our next steps in life, especially if we're out for a long time. So that's actually where we focus more on. And then once we pinpoint the plans that you have or what you want to happen next, then that's when we guide them on the actual steps that they need to do. If it's returning to corporate, then what are the steps that you need to do? Do you have to update your resume, your LinkedIn profile? What do you do to build your personal brand? How do you do networking? How do you apply for jobs at this time? So also, the job landscape has already changed so much since perhaps when they left the corporate years ago. So me as a recruiter and as an HR professional, I'm also able to guide them on the current trends and the jobs that are hot in the market right now. So I also do help them with the interview process because when you don't have much practice anymore in being interviewed, it can be scary and overwhelming. So those are the things that we aim to help the community on.
Yeah, I think I hear a lot about your values, finding your why, and then finding steps toward it could work for your season. And I think the emphasis is that it's a season. And that's something I've really learned in becoming a mom, that things don't last forever. And there's a
Mhm.
part of me that still needs to unlearn that because you just don't realize that with kids, the needs evolve so quickly and it does change. So, May, going into your experience with coaching women in your portfolio career, I would love to hear from your perspective because now you are in corporate and you were in your own business before. Like, what have been the trade-off, and how do you think about just like whether you should continue to still be in this versus like say go back to your old business?
So I think every career pivot has its own trade-off, Sarah. So when I decided to pivot to entrepreneurship from corporate, I think I mentioned earlier that the biggest trade-off was income stability. But it's something that I was willing to risk because that was the decision that our family made during that time. So now that I'm back to work, the trade-off is I have to spend more time at work. So while I have income stability, some things have to take a back seat. Like right now, while my business is still open, I had to scale back a lot. So in terms of accepting new clients, and I wasn't as aggressive as before in terms of marketing it, but I wanted to keep it because that is my baby as well. So there are some trade-offs, but I think it's about choosing what trade-offs you're willing to accept at different seasons in life. So right now, I'm focused on scalability and impact. With Mom's Next Move, I'm seeing a lot of, we're making a lot of fractions already. Like, since I started opening the one-on-one chats with mothers, so which I offer for free, when I've spoken to like more than 30 returnee moms already, it's been fulfilling journey. So that's why I'm continuing what we've started so far.
I mean, how did you get started with this space of advocating for returning moms?
Yeah, so I was a recruiter. So as recruiters, LinkedIn is actually our main tool in terms of sourcing and, finding candidates for the position that we're working on. But in 2021, I think, that's only when I started using LinkedIn to advance my personal brand. So before, I was just in LinkedIn, but just talking to candidates, searching for candidates. But I wasn't really posting anything. But in 2021, that's when my eyes was open to the importance of having your personal brand as a recruiter, because that sets you apart from the other recruiters, right? So it builds your credibility and all. So one of the posts, the topics that I was posting on very frequently during that time was my personal story of returning to work. And after a few posts, kept on getting personal messages from moms asking for tips or thanking me for inspiring them, or thanking me for sharing my story because it helped them build their confidence and all. So that's when I got the idea. So whenever I get a question, make it a point to write about it and post about it in LinkedIn. So that's actually when it started. And then, yeah, so the one-on-one chats, I started offering it mid last year because during the time when I was returning to work, I hope there was someone I can talk to. Just that thought popped up in my head. I wish someone who can relate to me or has been in my situation would be very helpful for me to, so I can ask questions and all. So that's when I started the one-on-one chat. So from LinkedIn posts, it evolved to the one-on-one chats, and hopefully we can offer more insights and tips and opportunities in the future for the community.
And just to be clear, are all the women who you speak with, are they all from Philippines?
Currently, it's from the Philippines. So
So
yeah.
yeah. Well, with a huge LinkedIn audience of 30K right now, and then you have almost 7K newsletter subscribers, you are obviously an expert at personal branding. So what have you learned about it? If you were to start all over again, what would you do to craft a strong personal?
Currently, I have 30,000 followers in LinkedIn. And yeah, I started my newsletter late last year. Now it has 7,000 followers. So I did not achieve that overnight, but it's okay with me. I actually prefer organic followers rather than joining LinkedIn pods to boost your follower. Yeah. So for me, it's being intentional. Like, you don't have to be everywhere. You have to think where your target market is. So like for me, it's on LinkedIn and also on Facebook. A lot of people tend to overthink posting on LinkedIn, but just start when you feel ready. For me, your story can help someone, but only if you share it. So that's always been my guiding principle in posting. Also, you should have clarity. You should know who you want to help. So actually, before, um, focusing on moms returning to work, I was everywhere. In terms of the post that I create on LinkedIn. So I would post about recruiting, I'd post about my family life. So when I decided to zero in on my advocacy, that's when everything, worked together. So that's when all my content pillars and the articles that I put out on LinkedIn. So I think you should have clarity. You should be consistent. So I started posting on LinkedIn like 3 times a week, and then it became 5 times a week, and now I make it a point to post every day, so 7 times a week. Yeah, so just and consistency on LinkedIn also means you should be it doesn't matter if you post like every day or like 3, 5 times a week. You just have to be consistent. Like if you say you'll post 3 times a week, you have to do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. There should be days that you should be showing up, and also the time. So you should also consider that the time when your audience is most likely on LinkedIn and reading articles. So for me, that's every morning. Also, another guiding principle is for me is more engagement over follower count. So at some point I stopped counting my followers. So because I built my audience by starting conversations and not just posting and then ghosting. So it's very important that aside from just posting articles, you should also reply to comments or also engage in the content of the other creators. So yeah, so those are my guiding principles. But for me, my LinkedIn right now is focused on my advocacy. So if you see my content, it's all related to mothers and mothers returning to work. At some point, I'm also posting about my personal journey as a mom, and it all ties up to the personal brand that I want to show up.
Yeah, really very interesting. Were there any boo-boos that you did that you're like, okay, I'm never gonna do that again?
To be honest, I cringe whenever I read my first posts on LinkedIn. Yeah, but that's I think part of the process. So, you learn over time, you develop your own voice over time. So, I think that's something that we really all have to go through.
And do you have a specific time of the day where you are, or maybe in the week where you are, busting out all these 5, 7 day content? I feel like that's a lot.
Actually, I don't post every day. So I use the feature wherein you can schedule posts. So but the discipline that I developed posting in on LinkedIn is that whenever a thought or a hook or a topic comes up anytime, I just pull out my phone and then I write it down on my notes app. So my content creation schedule is every Saturday morning, I look at my notes app, and that's when I develop the post. So once the posts are up, then I schedule it on my LinkedIn app to come up every 8:45 in the morning on specific days. What also helped me, Sarah, a lot is having content pillars. So, like, if you're going to look at my posts, all my Monday posts are motivational posts. So I post like quotes and then relate that to my specific experience and all. My Tuesdays are for newsletters. My Wednesdays are for tips for mom returners. Thursdays are professional tips. So I have those content pillars already. So whenever a topic comes up, then I know which day should I post them. And also my audience, if they've been following me, they know when they can expect like when the newsletter will come up. So they know it's every Tuesday. So I think having that discipline and also being able to organize your thoughts or your topics as well really helps. So it didn't become that overwhelming to me eventually.
Wow, I hear you do it 7 days a week. I'm just like amazed. I struggle with even like 5 a week. So that's amazing. That's amazing. What is one unexpected thing that's come out of you building your brand so strongly?
So I think it would have to be the recognition to be one of the top 100 Filipinos on LinkedIn in 2023 and also in 2024. While I'm aware that there's a group here in the Philippines who organizes that every year, I wasn't really aiming for that. But that is a really great recognition, and being able to join that group as well has been a great experience for me being with the other creators here in the Philippines and all. So yeah, I think that's one. And another thing also would be mom's next move. I think if not for the personal brand that I built on LinkedIn, this wouldn't have happened and I wouldn't have connected with mothers or women within all places here in the Philippines.
You say you're risk taking, me, but I have my doubts. I think to put yourself out there all the time, sharing about yourself, starting something new while working, it's actually something that I think risk taking people do it. I think yeah, you definitely embody someone who's taking bold and very confident steps.
Yeah, the younger me wouldn't have done that. Maybe my different career pivots in on the later years has contributed to this. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you hope your children learn from you watching you juggle work?
So I think my career journey changes, but able to I hope it's able to teach my daughters resilience and the value of having ambition. They see me working hard but also setting boundaries, prioritizing rest and pursuing dreams and still spending some time with them. Quality over quantity time. That's my motto nowadays in terms of spending time with my children. It's also I think it's also good that they're able to see me as their mommy, pursuing what I want to pursue, but at the same time still balancing everything. So I hope in the future when they're older and they have their own families as well, they will remember that motherhood doesn't stop us from pursuing our dreams. We might have seasons, but we can still do a lot on top of being good moms and wives to our husbands. Yeah.
Well, signature question for you, May. Can you have it all?
I don't believe in having it all actually, Zara, but I believe that you can have what matters most to you in each season of your life. So I think the key is defining all for yourself. So right now for me that means purpose driven work, time with family and space for personal growth. So I think it's priorities over balance.
Amazing, really nice. Purpose-driven work, time for family, and space for development. Like that. Well, with that, thank you so much for this great chat today, May. I learned so much from your journey about branding, about how you just roll with the punches and came out in quite a different space from where you were even before you were working in HR. And I wish you all the best. I continue to see you grow from the sidelines and I'm cheering you on. Thank you for joining us today, May.
Thank you again, Sarah, and more luck. Best of luck with your podcast. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you for listening to Make It Work, where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their careers whilst putting family first. Please help others discover the show by leaving a review and rating on wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. Meanwhile, here's to you, making it work.